Hello, everybody. Welcome to 100.3 The Buzz, in which we give you music and talk about music. My name's Noah Garland, and I'm here to talk about electronic music today. As music always tends to evolve, so do the ways in which it's made. In early radio, the most common things found on the radio were voices. Sports, news, music were all equal contenders on the radio scene. With music, instruments were also traditionally involved, and that's what continued its evolution. After evolving to many different genres from jazz to folk to rock, hip hop, and eventually, after all of those evolutions, some people thought, no, you don't even really need a full voice, do you? You don't even need real instruments. Today, we're going to be talking about electronic music and as it sweeps through the radio and Spotify albums of today's youth and adults, and how it's evolved through the little time it's had in music history, and how something that started off as just music in the background of a 90s nightclub turned into a pop sensation and something that you can listen to and feel about today. The two pieces of music we're going to give as examples today are Around the World by Daft Punk and Marshmello's Shockwave. Firstly, let's talk about Daft Punk. As explained by Kai Humphries Media, Daft Punk is a French electronic music duo consisting of French musician Guy Manuel de Christo and Thomas Bengleter. So sorry, I'm not very good at French. This duo achieved huge popularity in the 1990s and played a significant role in the French house genre, as well as early EDM music. EDM music standing for electronic dance music. As I stated before, the original purpose for electronic music was actually to be background music. It was meant to be something you dance to. They were one of the first in the industry as a whole, and were definitely considered trendsetters. As I stated before, early electronic music was meant as dance music. There wasn't much story, and there wasn't really meant to be anything behind it. It was just meant to be used as dancing music for clubs and parties. Personally, as I listened to Daft Punk, this continued to make sense. I had no clue about the story because there wasn't really much of a story. What I'm going to show you now is a small glimpse of Daft Punk's Around the World and kind of just pretty much the big gist of it. Here it is, Daft Punk's Around the World. As it states, it is Around the World. It is actually that entire song is a 4-minute on loop song of the same beat over and over again, and with the words around the world, from 50 seconds in to 4 minutes and 1 second, based on the YouTube link of their video. Overall, I personally enjoy this genre as it's just really nice background music. The overall aesthetic of Daft Punk, as it stands, is actually also pretty cool. Even though it is definitely more towards weird, as Daft Punk were one of the first trendsetters to not show their face. They did not show their face off whenever they did music. They were actually supposed to be represented by two robots, one gold and one silver. Unfortunately, personally, I do not know which is which, of which performer was who. However, that was their persona. And the other things in some of these videos were neon lights. They had other robotic backgrounds. They also had skeletons and people in kind of bodysuits, which was also kind of weird. But overall, the music's still pretty good, and it's just that's just what was originally there. It was originally made as dance music, and it kind of stayed as dance music. Now, as we move on, I wanted to also give examples of today's music, and how it's not necessarily anymore about just being background music. It's actually made to be its own standalone music. Um, for example, Marshmallow Shockwave. Marshmallow actually came around during the pandemic, as another contender within the electronic music industry. While he was not a original trendsetter similar to Daft Punk, he does have a lot of similarities. One main thing being the big personification of a non-human counterpart. For example, Marshmallow having the giant marshmallow on his head, and that being the representation of him as an artist. Another thing that he tended to do is, rather than having it be just a bunch of random beats together, he actually put a storyline to it. Is he had a storytelling and added emotion to it, even though the audio tuner was very similar to the sound of his voice, and Daft Punk did a very similar one. I'm going to show an example of Marshmallow Shockwave. It is about him losing his lover. Not I don't think it's necessarily in a death sort of standpoint, but just how I always thought I'd have life with you and that I could grow with you, but now I have life without you. So here is Marshmallow's Shockwave. Always think about you, always thought I have a life I could grow with you. But as time fades, crazy how our lives change, feeling like a shockwave without you. Always think about you, always thought I had a life I could grow with you. As time fades, crazy how our lives change, feeling like a shockwave without you. Feeling like a shockwave, 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 shockwave. All right, I just had to let the beat drop. Sorry about that. But yeah, you can definitely tell that there's actual lyrics rather than just the same words over and over again. And that's kind of where it evolved. It evolves, or where it shows evolution. Overall, I feel that electronic music has gotten a lot more popular, not just because of the evolution of story, but as Elsa Marshalls puts it, there's a lot of small form content apps like Vine at the time of her reading, and nowadays like TikTok, that are helping promote music similar to both Daft Punk and Marshmallow, creating more of a boom in the electronic music industry. Marshmallow and others are making these big trends and changes that allow electronic music to be its own category without having it just be in the background. It connects very similarly to other popular songs, as for example, Shockwave is a love song. That's what it is. It's a heartbreak song. There are a lot of different heartbreak songs in popular music. And not just even in pop, in almost every music genre, which just makes it even more connected to music as a whole, because a lot of people talk about their connections to heartbreak with music. Personally, with both Daft Punk and Marshmallow, I really enjoyed both of their musics. With Daft Punk, it was more when I was younger, but as the pandemic went on, and as well as in middle school and high school, because I believe he came out in 2016, so I was in 8th grade when he first came out, but I started really listening to him during the pandemic. I overall really enjoyed his music. One of my favorite songs of all time is still Shockwave to this day. However, Happier is also another good contender when I talk about it. And overall, I hope that the electronic music industry keeps evolving as we develop new stories and more features with the way that instrumentation works with electronic music, because you can make anything an instrument. We also don't have to just talk about the new stuff. Another thing that I think would be pretty cool is if they went backwards with some things, going back to the original outline of Daft Punk. Having someone come out with something like that nowadays, while it wouldn't be considered a trendsetter move, it would be considered a good nostalgia. It would have definitely have a good nostalgia factor. And overall, I think the electronic music industry as a whole is a really good thing. And it has a lot going for it. Anyway, that's all the time that we have for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. This was 100.3 The Buzz. I'm Noah Garland, and I'll see you next time.